All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Ravens flock, what's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are enjoying your day. So today marks the end of week 2 of training camp for the Ravens. They have the day off tomorrow, so they'll be back next week. I must say, this has been a very eventful week for the Ravens in training camp. We've seen a lot of progression between the offense and the defense. We've seen a lot of great plays and a lot of bad plays on both ends of the ball. There's a lot to talk about here because these training camp practices have been intense and we've seen a lot of moments here. But yeah, we are seeing the level of progression that we want to see, but we're also seeing the growing pains, specifically with the offense, because you're installing a whole new system, so we expect to see a lot of growing pains. And boy, were these last couple days painful for the Ravens offense. We're going to get into it, but it's been a very eventful week of training camp. Cannot wait for week 3. They got a lot more work to do, and they're continuing to build up this offense and add more to this offense and work on things that need to be worked on, and they're looking to improve. Same for the defense. The defense is allowed to get more and more physical and ramp things up the more training camp goes on, so they're now starting to make even more plays, and Mike McDonald has these guys doing their thing, man. He's got these guys doing their thing, and I just cannot wait to see how both sides of the ball continue to progress as training camp goes on and as the intensity continues to kick up as we get closer and closer to the NFL season. So let's start with the very best news we could possibly discuss. After 2 weeks of training camp, there has been zero, and I repeat, zero major injuries suffered. Knock on wood to just make sure that continues to happen, because we've had some bad luck with injuries. Obviously the first preseason game is coming up, and you know how preseason games have gone for us in the last couple years, so hopefully everyone's able to come out of that game clean. But so far through 2 weeks of practice, there's only been a few nickups here, a few tweaks here, nothing major. Got a couple people that have suffered some minor injuries. They're just out for a couple days. They'll be relatively back. And of course, we have the group of individuals that are coming off of an injury that haven't played yet, or that haven't practiced for the most part, that we're waiting to come back. The Ravens right now, anybody that's dealing with an injury or coming back from an injury, they're being very cautious with them. They're not trying to throw them out there. They're being very patient and allowing them to fully recover before they get back out there on the field, which is a good thing. So that's the best of the best possible situation you can get. We've seen a lot of brutal injuries, a lot of season-ending injuries happen so far throughout training camp as a whole for the NFL. So we just hope we continue to keep this level of health and everyone is able to get out of training camp relatively unscathed, and we can start the regular season as healthy as we possibly can be. Now let's actually get into the talks of what's been going on in training camp. So at the start of week 2 of training camp, it was a situation where the offense was starting to find themselves. The very basics of basics that they were doing, they were starting to get into a rhythm. So week 1 was a situation where the offense itself early on, they're running a whole new system. They're not really in sync. They're trying to get this situation going. And it took a while. It was a lot of growing pains there. But as we got towards the end of the week and then getting towards the beginning of this week, we finally started to see the Ravens offense find themselves, and they started hitting their stride, and they were cooking. The defense was still making plays throughout those times, especially the front seven, because they have been ferocious throughout training camp, and they've done nothing but bully our offensive line. Our offensive line consistently has been getting bullied throughout the entirety of training camp, and we're waiting for a moment where that offensive line can actually come out here and be consistent in terms of blocking and pass protection, because they have not showcased that once, or at least on a consistent basis throughout training camp. They're still a work in progress, and we're going to get into it. They have a lot of work to do. So, week 1 was very light, but the offensive line was getting beat. And plays were being made in the secondary. Plays were being made by our guys. But the offense, as the week went on, they started to find their stride. And we saw what happened in the stadium practice. They started to get a little bit more consistent. They started off slow. Defense was winning. And then they started to get more and more consistent. They were doing those red zone drills. And they were starting to be a lot more consistent. And they were actually able to score there and get the best of the defense. Coming into week 2, they started to slowly build on that. And they ended up having their 2 best practices offensive-wise, back-to-back. You had the one day where you had both Odell and Zay Flowers have multiple red zone touchdowns. Everybody was just cooking in the red zone. They were making plays when it came to 11-on-11s. The only play that was unfortunately missed was the play where Lamar threw a perfect deep ball to Odell. He couldn't catch it. If he would have catched it, it would have been a 70-yard touchdown. So they were in sync. And then you get the day after that where Lamar Jackson had his most accurate day of training camp. He was just dealing and diming, and all these guys were making plays. Odell was making plays. Nelson Aguilar was making plays. Zay Flowers was making plays. Mark Andrews was making plays. These guys were just out there making plays. So the offense started to get in the groove of things, at least in terms of the very basic aspects they talked about. However, we got to understand there's a lot more to this offense. And Todd Monken spoke about that when he went to the press conference this week. And he said, I don't think our offense is really good right now. He basically talked about the offense and said, we're not a good offense right now. We still have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of things we have to fix. We got a lot more things we need to continue to progress at. Right now, we're not a really good offense. We're not even a good offense. So that coming out, I enjoyed having Todd Monken just speak the truth, because he's implementing a lot of things here, and this is an entirely different system, so there's so much that has to change. And the players that have been here on the Greg Roman system, there's a lot of adjustments they have to make. The way they were doing things on the Greg Roman is not the way they're doing things right now with Todd Monken. So there was an adjustment that needs to be made, and they're still working on that adjustment. And I'm not gonna lie, we really are starting to see what he meant by saying this is not a good offense right now. They have a lot of work to do. So they had the 2 days where it was back-to-back days of the offense cooking, defense occasionally making plays, but the offense was just cooking. Then I believe it was Thursday where they had their walkthrough. Basically, it was the day that they spent that time installing more aspects to this offense. So now they have a whole new layer of things that they want to work on for the offense. They worked on the basics of basics in week 1 and half of week 2. Now they want to take it to another step and work on even more aspects of Todd Monken's offense. They spent Thursday implementing that, and then here comes Friday. And bro, yesterday and today, you can tell that they really do have a lot of work to do. The offensive line these last 2 days have been really, really terrible. And it's because they're still trying to make that adjustment. They've been constantly getting beat. I mean, they can't block on the edge. Our pass rushers are getting through. The front seven is bullying them even more than they did in week 1. And now we're starting to see penalties in terms of false starts happening in the offense. That was how Friday went, and it was not a good performance at all. Those are some of the growing pains you expect to see with this new offense under Todd Monken. Today, it was even worse. Lamar Jackson had the worst practice he's ever had as a starter for the Ravens. The Ravens quarterbacks as a whole had the worst practice they've ever had. This was a day, today, where they, as a collective whole, through the 3 quarterbacks, when you look at Lamar, you look at Josh Johnson, you look at Tyler Huntley, through the 3 of those guys, they threw 9 interceptions. Lamar had 4, Johnson had 3, Huntley had 2. 9 interceptions from your quarterbacks in camps. In one day, oh man, 9 interceptions. That was brutal. Now, thankfully, we did get context as to how the hell that happened. Both Isaiah Likely and Marlon Humphrey talked about this. Isaiah Likely, he was the one to step up to the presser today. He was talking about Todd Monken's system, the offense, his role, how he's adjusting to the system and what he's doing to get himself prepared for the season. But when they did ask him about the situation regarding the interceptions, he explained what was happening. See, Todd Monken today had the offense practice a very important drill that I personally feel is something that does need to be addressed. Today, they had the offense versus the defense in 3rd and long situations. So they were practicing 3rd and long situations where you needed to get a first down to convert. It was a must get first down. They were practicing 3rd and long situations, something every offense in the NFL deals with on a consistent basis. So they were practicing 3rd and long situations, and they were trying to convert. And let me tell you, man, that defense cooked them. The defense got the very best of the offense. Offense couldn't get anything going. Lamar was throwing pick after pick after pick after pick. And same thing for Johnson, same thing for Huntley. They just couldn't get anything to going in that 3rd and long situation. So today was a day of growing pains, but it was a day of learning. And I'm so glad to see them working on that, because We have been awful in third and long situations. If you go look at the last couple of years, we have not been a great team in third and long situations. Hell, the play calling in the third and long situations have been so frustrating that many of us have just verbally expressed how disgusted we've been with the play calling, especially in third and long situations. We've been terrible in those situations. Well, it's led to us punting a lot, and it's led to the offense stalling. So we've been terrible in those situations. And I don't even know if we were practicing for those situations in previous years, but we've been awful in those moments. So to see Todd Monken working on that here with this offense, and they're doing it against one of the best defenses in the league, it's a great thing. Now, on the flip side, the defense has been cooking. So far through training camp, you're looking at the front seven. You're talking about David Ojabo, you're talking about Justin Madubuike, you're just talking about the front seven as a whole, these pass rushes. They've been cooking this offensive line, and they've been making play after play after play after play. They're getting pressure on Lamar all throughout training camp, and I love to see that because I hope they can keep that level of intensity and level of performance in the regular season and hopefully in the playoffs, because we need this pass rushing unit. They're young, so we need them to perform, and right now through training camp, they are doing that. Then you look at the linebacking crew, and they're doing their thing. Patrick Queen's making plays. Roquan Smith's definitely making plays. I love the linebacking unit as a whole because everyone's been making plays. They've been making great stops, and it's just the level of consistency that we expect to see. We do have the best linebacking duo in the NFL. I truly believe that. If you look at how they perform, we got the best linebacking duo in the NFL. So I expect them to continue to perform the way they're performing right now in training camp. They're not making a lot of plays in terms of turnovers, but that's not their job to do. They're making plays and getting stops. They're making plays and making sure nothing happens with the run game. They're being effective, and that's what you want to see. Roquan Smith is still Roquan Smith, one of the best linebackers in football. He's doing his thing. Patrick Queen's been effective. I love what I'm seeing for him. So the linebacking unit, they've been great. Then you get to the secondary, and boy, the secondary has been eaten. The secondary is been they've been special. Kyle Hamilton throughout 2 weeks of training camp has showcased that he's a much better player right now than he was in year one. He's finally starting to click with what is happening with McDonald's defense. He's finally starting to click in terms of what's happening on the field, in terms of seeing what the quarterback's doing, in terms of anticipation. He's starting to see it, and he's putting it together. Today, he had an interception. He is doing his thing. He had an interception day one in training camp. He had an interception again today. And then yesterday, he was matched one-on-one with Mark Andrews. Shut him down. He wouldn't let him get a single completion. 3 times they were matched up. He won all 3 of those times. So Kyle Hamilton right now, he's making plays, he's making stops, he's forcing picks, he is doing his job, and he's showcasing that he is gonna have a huge year 2. And I hope that's gonna be the case. I really do hope that he's gonna have a great year 2, because we expect Kyle Hamilton to start to take that next step. And everything he's been showcasing so far in training camp is showcasing that he is going to be able to do that on the field come the regular season and hopefully come playoffs. I love what I'm seeing from him so far in training camp. I hope he continues it. And then, of course, you look right beside him, you got one of the best safeties in football, and Marcus Williams. He had 2 interceptions on Lamar today. He did his thing. He also had a stop on Mark Andrews, twice in fact. He's had 2 stops on Mark Andrews in the red zone where he's just knocked the ball out of his hands, and another one where he just flat out stopped him. So our safety duo right now, they're cooking. The safety unit is cooking, and this duo is starting to show the potential that we believe they can be. Like what we believe it can actually turn out to be. Like this could potentially be the best safety duo in football. They're starting to showcase that so far in practice. We have to see how it's going to happen in the game, but right now through practice, these guys are locking everything up in the middle of the field. Whenever you throw towards their direction, they're making the stops. Then you got the cornerback unit. Obviously, the injury to Rock Ya-Sin has been unfortunate, but it's allowed some of these younger guys to step up. Of course, Marlon Humphrey's still doing his things. He has a couple of picks throughout training camp so far, so he's doing his thing. He's had days where he's gotten beat by Odell, days where he's gotten beat by Nelson Aguilar. He's had a moment where he's gotten beat by Zay. He is getting beat by the receivers, but you expect that to be the case. It is what it is. Iron shapes iron. But he's still making plays, and he's forcing turnovers. And I hope this is going to be a year where you see the fruit punch come back, but most importantly, I hope it's a year where he's going to start racking up these interceptions, because I want to see Marlon Humphrey getting back to forcing turnovers the way he was doing in his all-pro season. I hope he can get back to that. But yeah, he's doing his thing. But then you got to look at the rest of the cornerback unit, and the cornerback unit right now is looking very interesting. Jalen Armour Davis right now is he's making a real good case. I talked about Armour Davis and said he's been doing a really great job. He's making a really good case for him to potentially be the number 2 corner. I still think they're going to give it to Rocky Sin, but he's making a good case as to why he should potentially be a number 2 corner. Right now, I think he's winning the competition for who's going to be our 3rd corner. He's been doing a fantastic job, but man, he's making a hard push for that 2nd corner position. And there's a good chance, hey, if Rocky Sin is compromised in terms of how his knee's doing, because that's what he's suffering right now, if he's compromised and they don't want to try to risk him, I feel they're going to put Armour Davis out there. They've played him with the starters. They've been rotating these corners, and Armour Davis so far has been having a fantastic camp. And the same can be said for these other young corners that are starting to step up. Obviously, Brandon Stevens, he's been making plays. He's been getting things done. Seymour's been doing things. Like, we're watching our corners make plays. They're getting picks as well. The defense as a whole is just, they're eating, they're thriving. And when it came to what happened today, where you got 9 interceptions coming from that secondary, it's been a fantastic thing. While I talk about the situation regarding our offense being bad in those 3rd and longer situations, I also have to mention that was the same case for our defense. Our defense couldn't get off the field in 3rd and long situations. They constantly gave up big plays on 3rd and long situations, and they were not good at making stops, especially early in the year when it came to those moments. Today, having them be put in those situations and seeing if they can respond, and having them do their job and respond accordingly, and respond so effectively, that just makes me happy. So you see, that drill was best for both sides, because we've been terrible at that situation offensively, and we were terrible in covering that situation defensively. Defense got the best of them today and showcased they're taking that next step. Offense today was a learning experience for them, and they're still growing. And we'll see how they continue to grow as we enter week 3. Now, we don't know if we'll get any of these other guys to come back. We don't know the status of Rashad Bateman. I have no clue when he's coming back. It seems like J.K. Dobbins actually is holding out. I don't know when he'll be back. I don't know when Tyus Bowser will be back. I'm not sure when David Ojabo will be back, because they're being very, very patient with these injuries. Rocky Sin, I don't know when he's going to be back. The good news is all these injuries I've talked about, they're all minor. They're minor injuries that's just keeping them out of camp right now. And the Ravens are not about to speed up that process. They're going to let these guys take their time, get to 100%, then bring them back, because they don't want to risk having them re-injure themselves. So far through 2 weeks of training camp, it's been a lot of great plays from both sides of the ball. And I hope we continue to see the progress of Todd Monken's offense, because we definitely have a lot of work to do. Oh yeah, another aspect, they had the 9 turnovers, but they also had 6 false starts. So they have a lot of work to do. And I expect them to continue to put in the work and continue to progress as we get closer and closer to the regular season. Next week, we will obviously see the first preseason game for the Ravens. Can't wait to see how that's going to go down. But yeah, it's been a very interesting 2 weeks, and I cannot wait to see what week 3 holds for both the offense and the defense. With that being said, guys, I appreciate you stopping by. That's all I got to say, and I'm out of here, man. Peace.